Alright, so I'm sure this video doesn't really need that much introduction because I've done it a million times now, but as you know, we just had a KC Cup, and as per usual at the end of a KC Cup, we expect a ban list. And this time around, I'm expecting a bit of a fat one. Maybe not in terms of the amount of cards on there, there should be some pretty decent hits on here, especially considering during the previous KC Cup that just happened, there was some absolutely egregious shit going on that needs to be addressed, and we'll talk about that when we get to it throughout the video. So if you guys haven't seen one of these before, it's pretty simple stuff. I'm going to be talking about cards I'm predicting to be on the next upcoming ban list sometime this week or early next week, whenever it drops. I'm predicting cards that are going to be on there. This is not a wish list. This isn't going to be just me going through cards that I want to be on the ban list. It's what I think will be on there. That's it. So don't flame me in the comments for wishing your favorite pet deck to be banned. I'm just predicting what I think will be on there. So I'm going to be using this nice little trusty tier list maker thing here to give you a nice visual as well at the end, so you can see basically how everything looks at the end of this video. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. Alright, so first up we have Borrowlink. So Borrowlink is a little bit interesting in that it technically has already had some effects from a ban list, like some limits from a ban list, and it didn't really do that much. It went from being the best deck in the game to still the best deck in the game. Obviously it was enough to curb its power level a little bit, but yeah, I think at this point, the thing that needs to be hit most with this deck is probably skill related, just because I'm not really sure what they could hit in a deck that's sort of like very Dragon Link-ish sort of a deck, where it's just a pile of dragony cards and they just all sort of work well together. At this point, just look at how the archetype's put together, man. There's so many just different, just random things in here. So I'm not really sure what they could do to this outside just like butchering the deck without just looking at the skill. So maybe in terms of cards, Quick Launch is obviously a very high contender up there. They could put this to 3 and that makes things a little bit awkward with quick trigger or rapid trigger at 3 with your the Pioneer at 3, all that kind of stuff. Let's zoom out a little bit. It would be a little bit awkward if they put something to 3 along with this, but in general, I think they should probably look more towards the skill than maybe the cards in here. More specifically, if you want to lightly touch the skill, there's no reason why you should be able to hand trap this deck and they get a free link 2 out of it. That's silly. So make sure the skill is only for turn 2 and onwards, not just if your opponent has a monster in the graveyard. That's random as hell. So maybe do that. Making sure the skill can't search Lancia for literally no reason. That's also a huge buff, or huge nerf for the deck, because searching Lancia, why? Just remove the fact they can do that would be a nice hit. And yeah, make it so they can only search for dragons, like the skill's probably intended, or Cyber, or whatever the skill's actually intended to do, rather than searching Lancia, which is dumb and silly. So probably Quick Launch, probably some sort of change to the hand trap searching bullshit, and a change to the fact they can put a link 2 on the field if it gets hand trapped, which is also very dumb. That'd be great. Outside of that, I'm not really sure if that's going to be harsh enough hits, honestly. I'm not really sure what else they could do to it. Maybe they go off the deep end again and put the Melody to 3, but I doubt they'll do that unless they're willing to take Floodgate Trap Hole off, which is something we talked a long time ago about in the previous video, where Floodgate Trap Hole and Melody are both in the starter structure deck for new players, so they don't really want to put cards in that list to 3, otherwise it ruins the structure deck and just it creates a whole lot of stuff I don't think Konami wants to deal with. So God knows what else they're going to hit. Quick Launch, they're going to touch the skill, and I think that is, yeah, those are going to be my guesses for now. Feel free to put your own thoughts in the comments down below to what you think might be hit, but I'm not really sure what else they can do to this deck outside of that. Maybe just be really egregious on the skill hits, because the way I was talking about the skill hits were pretty light in what they were doing to it, but maybe they just go much harder on it. So limit 3 that, and I don't know, what's another... what's this card's name? Borrow Load, right? Borrow... Now you'll do. Should take Furious, there we go. Alright, so that's how we'll start it. Alright, next up, Lalist. This deck's brand new. If you're expecting this to be hit, you're on some major copium. This deck won't be touched at all. Literally, won't be touched whatsoever. Slate that even enforces that is during the previous KC Cup, it didn't do too well, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as to why that happened. But yeah, this deck's brand new, won't be touched. Don't expect anything in this deck to be touched whatsoever. It's completely brand new. All the cards in here are brand new. It's not going to be touched. Alright, Star Seraph. My personal most hated deck currently, and honestly, probably one of my most hated decks ever in Duel Links history. I hate this deck. Not the actual archetype itself, but the skill. And we'll talk about the skill last. First thing we'll talk about is one change that needs to happen to this deck if they don't want to touch the skill, or if they do want to touch the skill but only nerf it briefly. A major change that needs to happen to this deck, because it has caused some pretty big, like it's actually a massive change for it, is Eclipse needs to be taken out of it. The reason Eclipse needs to be taken out of this deck specifically is this archetype always had a little bit of a problem with targeting effects. In fact, non-targeting effects, I should say. So it doesn't have any real innate non-targeting stuff. There's some different techs and things that could sort of run in the deck, but Eclipse made it so that it could actually do its standard combo properly without having to do just weird lines and things to get over cards that are just immune to targeting. Because obviously Book of Eclipse flips things face down, they can remove it. All of a sudden your Scepter can target things again. I think this can, yeah, just targets come to the field, destroy it. Your Delta Rose can target things again, destroy it. Just basically, a lot of this deck was around about targeting. This made it so that if something was immune to targeting, they don't care anymore. And it made this deck just really, really powerful. So getting rid of this from the deck, giving a limit 3 to Scale, giving a limit 3 to Scepter maybe. One of these two gets a limit 3, I don't really care which. Most people probably think will go to Scale just because it's not the ultra rare for the deck. But a limit 3 on one of these removes the Eclipse from the deck, or at least reduces it, makes the deck a lot more healthy. So I think one of these two is probably going to go to 3. I'm just going to put Scale, I think, for this video, just because it's the non-ultra rare one, so that's one Konami's probably going to look at. But if it's Scepter, it's the same deal. It's going to change the fact that, what the hell? Is it not called Scale? Star Seraph. There it is. So, Scale. If it's not Scale, it'll be Scepter. One of those two, doesn't really matter. One of those two will be a 3. And yeah, so that will remove the Book of Eclipse from the deck. The thing I think will also be changed, and what I personally want to be changed, I know this is meant to be a non-wishlist video, but I think this will be changed as well, is this skill, it's completely fine, other than the fact, where's the once per duel on it? There is absolutely no reason for it not to be once per duel. A lot of people complain that this skill was like, but if they remove the once per duel, it'll be a dead skill, or the deck will be dead, and all this kind of stuff. And honestly, if that happens, that's fine with me. In Duel Links, I've always been a huge defender of skills and saying that, like, decks can have really powerful skills. That is completely fine, and I'm fine with it. But there is obviously a limit. And this skill, for me, is probably one of the first skills. I think the Tachyon skill is also a very big problem. But this is one of definitely the first skills where I've noticed it just plays the deck for you. It is absolutely egregious. I'm normally a big defender against the yellow button plays the deck for you argument, but in this case, it's so egregious, it just needs to go. This skill is like, you use it, you get your 2 dudes on field, you can use it again to get another dude on field to get eclipsed or something, and then once you've absolutely wiped your opponent's, let's say someone you actually just disrupted you, wiped your field, following turn, you do the exact same thing again. No, that is not okay. This should be a once per duel skill. It's obviously going to be insane and just still setting up the deck and what it wants to set up and still making Star Seraph actually a playable, functional deck, because currently Star Seraph without the skill is not functional. But it should not, by any means, be repeating that process multiple times a duel. That is heinous, it's ridiculous. This should be once per duel. And I think Konami will realize that and change that. There's no reason this shouldn't be once per duel at all. I know some other people have been coming up with some like wacky changes and stuff for this skill, but personally, it just should be once per duel. That's just all it needs. That's all that needs to happen to it. Make it once per duel so that if you wipe their field, they don't just draw 1 card and do the entire combo again. Stupid. Alright. So, get rid of Star Seraph now. I've had my little rant about that one. Alright, Fleur. So, Fleur had a bit of an interesting time in this last KC Cup for those that were following it. Specifically, not really the Fleur stuff itself, but a certain Bish Bulan. I have never been more confident in saying something we banned ever, as I'm about to say this one. Bish Bulan will be banned. 100% banned. If you like this card, get your play use out of it now, because it's going to be gone. 100%. There is like a 99.9999% recurring. This is gone. It is 100% gone. They put it to 1 because it was being a little bit egregious, and it's still being egregious at 1. It is, yeah, it's gone. There is no chance of surviving. It is going to be banned 100%. If you don't know what happened in the last KC Cup, basically, day 1, on maybe a bit of day 2 as well, was horrendous if you were trying to play Lalist or I think Star Surf as well. I'm not really sure on that one. Some of the skills on here that didn't let you, I think it's also pretty bad for time thing, I'm pretty sure as well. Some of the skills on here that force you to essentially not have links in your extra deck, especially Lalist, which I'm pretty sure just says you cannot play links in your extra deck. Those skills, if you would play Bish Bulan, you'd play the tokens on the field and your opponent can't remove them. Literally no out to it. Lalist had 0 outs to it. 3 tokens on field. That's it. That's their game done. They can't link summon. The skill prevents it. They can't do it. Yeah, they can't do anything. Even decks that could have the link monsters in it typically didn't, because the generic links like Nightmare Phoenix requires 2 monsters with different names. 3 tokens with all the same name? Yeah, that's nothing. It required you to play specific dumb links that don't do anything, that are pretty useless, to actually out the Bish Bulan lock. So people were just Bish Bulaning all over day 1 and probably a bit of day 2 for the KC Cup, which just completely destroyed Lalist. It made Lalist an unplayable deck in the event, completely just annihilated it. So if you're wondering why there wasn't that many Lalist tops in this top 100, I think that's probably why. So yeah, I think after that though, a lot of people realized Lalist probably wasn't the play. It's probably better to just go for some of the decks that can play through it, like Borrowlink and stuff, and that also meant that the Bish Bulan stuff sort of died off a bit towards the end of the event, and yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare, okay? There are ways to out the lock with, like I said, you play generic links in your extra deck for the decks that can do it, and that made it much more of a worse deck. But in just basically, yeah, it's egregious gameplay. It needs to be gone. It'll be banned 100%. So, Bish Bulan will be banned. Alright, Bish. Let's see if I remember this. Is it Bish like that, or is it not 2 eyes? Is it Bish Bulan? How do you pronounce it? It has like a weird name. I thought it had 2 eyes at the start of it. Anyway. Where's my ban? To the top? A bit. Alright. There's also future-proofing too, because Bish Bulan, as you guys know from TCG and stuff, it's always been an egregious FTK card, so it's probably a good thing that it goes now before it becomes another FTK card in the future. Alright, now as for Fleur itself, the rest of Fleur, in terms of the actual cards in the deck, it's really hard to nerf Fleur because, well, there's so many different variants of Fleur. What do they choose to hit? You hit one variant, they're just going to swap to another one, right? If they want to make it so that you have to play less of, like, if they put, like, something insane, like they put the Sorcerer de Fleur to 1, or they put Sausage to 1, or they never do that. Let's say they put this to 1 or something, then the skill itself no longer functions because it requires a certain amount of Fleur cards, otherwise it just doesn't really work. They can replace this with that generic Spellcaster monster, but Konami doesn't want that. That's not what the skill is trying to do. It wants you to play these Fleur monsters, right? So that's what they're going to aim for. So I don't really think the actual cards in the deck are going to be hit, because I don't really know what they would hit. Maybe they could put the Sorcerer de Fleur to 3. That could take out some of the limit 3s from the different archetypes, like Orcust uses limit 3s, the Mech Knight use limit 3s. If they're playing Book of Eclipse, that's obviously limit 3, so maybe they put... In fact, I actually think... I'm pretty confident that could be something they do, so I might just put that on here. De Fleur? Yeah, I could be pretty confident in that. I don't think they'll touch this one per se, because I think it's too... I don't think they'll put this one to 3. But they might put this to 3. I'd be fine with that, and I think that would be like... I'd be personally fine with that, but if we're talking like what Konami's probably going to do, it's the cheaper of the 2 Fleurs in here, so maybe that's the one they put to 3, they put something to 3. But if they don't put anything to 3, that's probably fine too. Don't know if they're going to bother. The skill itself... I don't know, I just don't really think... okay, there was one really good suggestion I saw from Grand Harrier in regards to the skill, because he noticed something that was pretty obvious, actually, that I've never thought of it. This skill, for some reason, when it puts monsters on the field, it doesn't put them face down, like a lot of the updated skills have currently been doing. So your opponent never gets a chance to use counterplay towards them, which is pretty bad, because obviously if you want to be able to like stop your opponent going to the Dingirsu, they can't just swap out Slane, put a level 8 on the field, make Dingirsu. You want to be able to sort of have some counterplay of that, so maybe change the skill slightly so that it puts things on the field face down, forces you to flip them. Same with all the other new skills that are out recently, so that'd be nice. So we'll put that on there too, just because that is a likely change, or just a quality of life update. It is obviously a nerf, but it's more of a quality of life update for people playing against the deck. They'll be a lot more fair, I think most people would agree. So I think those are the two changes that might happen to Fleur. I'm not super confident on this one, though. If this one doesn't happen, it's probably more likely this, but we'll see. Alright, Sacred Beast. I'm under the impression Sacred Beast doesn't need a hit whatsoever. Like, it really doesn't. I don't see much of an issue with this deck at all. Yeah, I'd be pretty confident in saying this deck's fine. I saw this on ladder a couple of times recently, and I don't think Konami likes the fact this is being played. So maybe Tirade gets a ban. In fact, sure, we'll put on this thing, because I don't think Konami cares about just some random rare card from God knows where. So, the Tyrants? How do you spell this stupid thing? Oh, it's with a Y. Tyrants. So if they want to ban this card, you know, sure. Go ahead, ban it. I'm down for that. Put in the Forbidden up here, just in case. If it doesn't happen, that's fine too, but it's something that Konami's probably looking at just because it has seen a little bit of popularity recently, and it's cringe. So if you don't know what this card does, it's basically just a floodgate, like a skill drain. It's probably not needed in the game, so if they want to ban it, I'm completely down for that. Sky Striker. Okay, so Sky Striker is a little bit of an interesting story too. The previous KC Cup, Sky Striker went absolutely bananas. There are so many Sky Strikers in top 100. At least we think there's going to be, because we haven't got the actual results yet. We think there's going to be a ton of them. That's because, basically, like I said with the Bish Bulan stuff, Lalist day 1 and day 2 wasn't a deck. It got Bish Bulan out of existence. There's still a couple of Lalist players in top 100. There's still a decent amount of them, obviously. But the main, chunk of them got absolutely gutted on day 1, which meant that Sky Strike was like, oh, our actual counter deck, the thing that's been stopping us from being one of the best decks in the game, if not the best deck in the game, is now not being played, or at least it's half as playable. Fantastic. So then they just absolutely steamrolled the cup, because Sky Striker, if you don't know, it's all targeting effects. The entire archetype's targeting. Literally, they set up one untargetable monster, and that's basically it. There's nothing Sky Striker can realistically do, especially considering it's an untargetable and indestructible monster, so they can't just do their, target the back row, then non-target pop something. That doesn't work either. So Sky Striker gets absolutely dumpstered by Lalist. Lalist was unplayable on day 1, on day 2. That meant Sky Striker was like, oh beauty, we're going to actually stomp this cup. So I think even though the cup's going to show a lot of Striker results, I think Konami is pretty well aware that once they nerf this deck, they nerf this deck, maybe nerf something else in here, that Lalist is going to look really strong. And with Lalist being potentially the best deck in the game, Striker probably isn't going to be that popular, especially on the ladder anymore. So I think Striker, it's probably not going to be hit whatsoever in terms of main deck. I doubt there'll be a single card in here hit. I'll be surprised if a single card in here gets hit. Something they could look at is the skill, because the skill's a bit weird in that when Konami added these generic skills, they just wanted to, I'm pretty certain they just wanted to add some generic skills to the game for archetypes that don't have skills, because the old ones aren't really that good anymore. Like, people don't want to play Ties the Blinds anymore, it's just not very good. So they want to add some good generic skills to those decks. But Link Darkrais, in specifically with Sky Striker, it isn't a case of just being like a nice little boost that's better than playing some shitty skill like Ties the Binds. It's actually like a skill that is almost designed for the deck and how well it works with it. The life point gain in a control deck means that obviously you're playing a control deck. If you're able to survive longer, or you're able to make the turn pass back to you, you're going to gain a shit ton more resources than your opponent probably is, and you can grind games a lot easier. So life point gain's already insane. But then has this insane attack boost attached to it as well, that meant cards like your Hayate, which already has, or your Kagura, which already has an attack boost, were doing way too much damage. And of course, your Hayate, which can hit directly, also is doing way too much damage. So it just didn't make much sense to have a skill that's attack buffing, especially considering it's a skill that's meant to be doing stuff with dark Link monsters, and it's buffing things that are like wind and fire and stuff. Like, it's just buffing stuff that isn't dark. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So if they want to nerf the skill so it's not giving the 500 attack buff to those monsters, that'd be fantastic. Making sure it's only doing it to dark monsters, that'd be great. So they could do that to the skill, and I think that's a likely change. So we'll put a little Sky Striker thing here. Keep in mind, for people that are watching this afterwards, maybe if someone types something stupid in the comments because they didn't watch this portion. This skill is obviously for the skill we're talking about now, not for the Sky Striker skill. So if you see anyone in the comments typing something stupid about me saying, why are they nerfing the Sky Striker skill? Make sure to inform them that we're talking specifically about Link Dark Rays, not the actual Sky Striker skill, because that's all that needs to be hit. Alright, and the last thing is Time Thief, which it's brand new. It's not going to be touched. Same as Lalist. Literally zero chance this deck gets touched. And honestly, if you saw the last KC Cup and this deck probably got really dumpstered in that, it's hard to tell if there was any Time Thieves at all in top 100 without seeing the actual results yet. But once Star Surfer is nerfed, which is its deck's hardest counter, this deck is completely egregious versus this, just because of how the matchup sort of works, how the skill matches up against us. Time Thief was just absolutely awful against it, made it almost unplayable, but with Star Surfer potentially gone, this deck will rise and become a strong deck again. At least that's kind of what I hope, so... But it won't be touched regardless because it's a brand new deck. So that's basically it for the ban list. But there is one more thing I wanted to talk about, because that is the freeing section. I think there is one archetype that has a very high chance to come off the ban list. Very high chance, because it promotes the brand new Rush Duel world that's coming very soon. I know it's not necessarily a Rush related deck, or it's not actually a Rush. Obviously, there's a speed cards we're talking about. But because of how much they're going to be pushing this one deck, and there happens to be some banned cards in the speed section that should not be banned, have no reason to be banned, but have been mysteriously been banned for the longest time. We're talking about Cyber Dragon, of course. So, for some reason, hopefully this will show them. Oh wait, I should look at this on the Duel's website. Cyber Dragon's been on here for the longest time for no reason. Why this card's limited and why this card is limited, I have absolutely no clue. And with the new Rush Duel, Structure Deck, Cyber Dragon, wow, and new Cyber Dragon fusion stuff, wow. Maybe they're going to want to sort of encourage the people that are interested in Cyber Dragon stuff to, you know, come back and play some more Cyber Dragon stuff. Even if it is only Speed Duel, and it's not technically the Rush Duel stuff, maybe it's enough to encourage a few players to sort of get back into the game, then see that the Rush Duel section has Cyber Dragon as well, and like, oh boy, I can now play Cyber Dragon there too, and they just sort of cross-contaminate each format. I think that's the right wording, but you get what I mean. So I think these two cards are very likely, especially Fusion. Whether or not they get put Overload back, because Overload's a pretty strong card. I don't think it needs to be on there, but... It's not called Overload, what is it called? Overflow, sorry. It's been a long time since I've had to use this card. Yeah, I think Overflow and Fusion are probably going to be freed because of the new Rush Duel Structure deck. Will encourage players to come back to the game to play their favourite Cyber Dragon deck they haven't gone to play in forever. They'll see this brand new Rush Duel Structure deck's been released, and all these cool new Fusion monsters are coming and stuff, and it will encourage them to just get into the whole Cyber Dragon theme. So I think that's likely to be unhit. And that is my ban list. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I don't think there's anything else I missed. I think in terms of the actual other top decks in the game, like Unchained and stuff, they're not really doing anything too egregious right now. Magispector's not doing a whole lot. Shadow might receive Slant just because it's a fairly oldish art type now, but I doubt it, honestly. It's probably fine. So, yeah, I think those are the main hits. So let me know your thoughts down below. Is this a decent ban list? Am I completely wrong on what's going to be on the ban list in the future? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you didn't, leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Hope to see you in the next one. Laters.